Hey, Cory, I was telling someone the other day that I've known you for someone that's like a non-player, non-front office person. I've probably known you almost my whole baseball career because we crossed paths in 1998, I believe.
The Danville 97s.
Yeah.
I lived in Danville, Virginia for a little more than 1 year, Mike, and you came in as a visiting broadcaster. Nice little ballpark, Danny
Yeah.
Daniels ballpark there, but I was there for 1 year. Got my feet wet a little bit and then came to Altoona in 1999. But it is interesting. Minor league baseball is really a small little bubble world.
Sure.
A lot of people that get into minor league baseball stay in minor league baseball for a long, long time.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy to think. And that was the bridge for Durham, right?
Yep, yep.
That was how Durham
They
left the league. Yeah.
Yeah, they had that season, 1998. They had two teams.
Yeah.
They had the Danville Braves in the Carolina League, and then Danville or Danville 97s, and then the Danville Braves in the Appalachian League. So the smallest city in the country that had two teams. You think L.A., Chicago, so New York, Danville, Virginia had two professional baseball teams in 1998.
Crazy. Yeah. Minor league baseball is changing. We'll certainly get into it. Follow Cory on Twitter. I like Cory Giger. Why not? Right? That's your Twitter handle. Why make it silly?
Yeah, usually people either misspell my first name. They'll spell it Corey
Yeah.
or Geig. So just Corygiger. I have a lot of fun stuff on Twitter. I try to treat Twitter as a good communication and just kind of conversation thing.
That's great. So how did you get to Altoona?
Yeah, I was in Virginia in '98. Was looking for another minor league job. Saw that the Curve were coming in '99, and I applied. They had about 40 something applicants. They brought me up for an interview, and really just a life changing type of thing. I'd never heard of Altoona, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And then they get this double A franchise. This is a city of less than 50,000 people, Mike,
Yeah.
and they get a double A franchise. And so I came here thinking I'd be here 2 or 3 years. And, I was 25, 26 at the time, hoping to get to the major leagues. But something happened in August of 1999. I met this girl, and uh, just like Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting, I got to go see about a girl, and
Yeah.
Matt Damon. So I met my future wife here. She's from Altoona, and really at that point I was destined to never leave here. Now I have 8-year-old twins, and just love living in central Pennsylvania, except for when I look out and see all this snow outside.
Yeah. I'm in Mass. We have the same thing. So how strange is it? So your kids, like their world is Altoona. So you didn't grow up there. So it's weird that your kids are now that they're going to lay roots there. That must be strange to see.
Well, it is because I'm from the South. I'm from Arkansas,
Yeah.
and all my family lives in the South. My kids are Northerners. My my brother in Arkansas calls my wife Yankee City,
Wow. Jeez.
but just as joking. But no,
Yeah.
we are full fledged Northerners. My kids are full fledged Northerners. Um, yeah, but look, I've lived all over the country, and a lot of the country is the same. Yeah, you'll see differences in certain places, but we have a Cracker Barrel, we have a
Mhm.
mall,
Oh yeah.
we have movie theaters, we have Taco Bell. I live, Mike, within 2 miles of literally every restaurant that you could want. Walmart, grocery store. I don't. I drive my car about 20 miles a week, I think.
Yeah. I've been to probably all those places too in Altoona.
Yeah, exactly.
Go back, I've told a lot of people this. That ballpark, it could fit now if they built it. You know what I mean? The Altoona ballpark I'm talking about. If that was built right now, you would say, "Wow, how did that all happen? Who in the world had the vision to build something?" Because we're seeing ballparks built 20 years ago that aren't good anymore. But that place seems like it's going to last forever.
Well, I'll tell you a 2 hour story in a minute or two. There was a gentleman named Tate DeWeese, a local businessman, attorney businessman. He kind of had an idea early '90s, um, and then the long and short of it was he was able to connect with Bob Lozenak, a longtime minor league owner. He owned the AAA franchise in Albuquerque,
Okay.
and they were able to once expansion came uh, with the Rockies. They added a couple AA franchises, and Altoona was able to get one, a small city, again, less than 50,000 people. But this gentleman, Tate DeWeese, was able to secure this, help secure this land, and then Bob Loznak's name recognition and finances. But then they had a massive falling out because Tate DeWeese, while he did a lot of legwork, was really an extremely, extremely difficult person to get along with. He ended up dying about, I believe, 15, 16 years ago. But ended up with a lawsuit between the owners. One of the owners actually got fired. Bob Loznak, the owner, actually fired Tate DeWeese, a co-owner. Just a real bizarre situation. So then they couldn't really get rid of him. And so Bob Loznak decided to sell the team to Chuck Greenberg, which brought in Todd Parnell. You're talking about two of the great minor league executives in the country. And so Altoona had a great run, and then Chuck Greenberg wanted to sell him, and Bob Loznak came back. But really a very, very bizarre story, Mike, about the way this whole franchise really kind of came about. But Tate DeWeese, really brainchild, and then he brought in, Bob Loznak, and that's the way they were able to really do everything right here from the very beginning.
Yeah. Now, wasn't that gentleman involved with McDonald's in that area, or? Yeah, I remember
Bob
that.
Loznak owned 8 McDonald's franchises down in the Cumberland, Maryland area. They no longer own them, but he owned those for some 40 years or so. So real good businessman, very, very smart, great salt of the earth kind of guy. And so what you had this dynamic of a businessman in Tate DeWeese who got a lot of legwork done, but wasn't the easiest guy in the world to deal with, versus this other owner, Bob Loznak, who is just a tremendous human being, and they just do not see eye to eye. Fortunately, things were able to survive here. But man, that story goes on and on and on.
Sure.
I tell you.
Yeah, it's crazy how those are the things I don't think you learn as a kid or growing up, that personal relationships.
Yeah.
I know when I was younger, it was always about, geez, I wasn't a 4.0 student, so I didn't go to this college. And then you realize that none of that matters if you aren't a good person, right?
I love that you said that, because I really was a straight A student. My wife was a straight A student. Not a single employer has ever asked me my GPA. Not a single employer has ever asked my wife her GPA. I don't want to diminish school, because again, I cherish school and the learning process, but people skills are what I've really learned as an adult. Can help you succeed in life. Yes, you can succeed with great education, but I've known some people, not to say that these people weren't real smart or didn't get good grades, but Todd Parnell, for instance, the general manager here for a long time, the greatest people skills you'll ever find in minor league baseball. And I don't know, maybe he got good grades, maybe he did, I don't know. But my point is, you can get by and succeed in life just as long as you know how to relate to people and talk to people, instead of just doing this all the time. Instead of just, these kids nowadays, they're just on their phone. I mean, I have 8-year-old kids. I can't get them off the iPad. That's what these generations are growing up with. And I really fear for what it's going to do to the people skills, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. And why not teach it? I said we should probably teach relationships and how to eat in our schools now, because we're not great at, but we can learn at it. But the ballpark, though, to me, I think that ballpark is one of the best in minor league baseball. And it just blows me away when it was built that it still holds up, because 1999 nowadays is not long for some reason. Ballparks they have like a 10-year life shelf now, and people are bored of them, which is weird.
Yeah, they did it right. They built it great. It's gorgeous. There's a roller coaster beyond right field. It has a unique, fit and appeal to it. But let me throw this out to you, because you mentioned, the gentleman who owned McDonald's, Bob Loznak. Generally speaking, and I hope this is the case for everybody that watches this, you go to a McDonald's, you're going to get a pretty clean restaurant. You're going to get, what you get with McDonald's. Bob Loznak came up with the business sense of keep things clean.
Yeah.
Keep it family oriented. And he got all this from McDonald's. One thing they do phenomenally well in Altoona, they keep the ballpark clean. The bathrooms are always clean.
Yeah.
There's a huge concourse. It's 30, 40 feet long or wide. So there's lots of room to walk behind, on the concourse. And so when you have the size and the cleanliness, and we have an older population here in Altoona, Mike. So a lot of the Curve's core fan base are going to be maybe an older group. They can get in and out of the ballpark very, very easily. So when they built that ballpark, man, they really hit a grand slam, because you're right, it has held up overall this time.
I'm surprised that I haven't seen that ballpark in other places. Like you see a ballpark and then you see a bunch that look alike. This is a huge stadium. Google
Mhm.
this Altoona ballpark. Google it. It's huge. Broadcasting, it's way up, which I don't care. I'm not saying that. It's different, but I'm surprised because I've gone to a lot of minor league stadiums and you can tell that, oh, all right, they got this from that. They got this from here. That sticks out for some reason. But, was it a big baseball stadium company that built that?
No, just a local
No.
group that designed it and put everything together. And again, the appeal of the roller coaster beyond the right field fence. That's
Sure.
really what the ballpark is known for. It gives the ballpark just a great deal of notoriety, because you just don't see something like that. There's an amusement park beyond right field, and again, the roller coaster's right there. So really, really cool. When you come to the Altoona ballpark, you're at the Altoona ballpark. Just like there are some other ballparks around the country in the minor leagues that have their own unique personality, and Altoona definitely does.
Yeah. What I've loved about the Pirates, they've got they're just such a cool franchise. I remember growing up, they were like the Royals. Even though I grew up in New England, you like the Pirates for some reason. I don't know, certain players, the We Are family, and then once you get into our business, you get to see the guys before, McCutchens and just the players they've had. So I know you and I both side to side, we kind of grew up. I grew up with the Red Sox, seeing all those guys in Portland, and you got to do the same. And for me, that never got old. And I'm sure for you, seeing those guys first and you got to talk to them a lot. It's special.
It is. It's pretty amazing at the Double A level. Give or take, the Curve have had about 22% of their players go on to the major leagues. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big number.
Yeah.
So when you go out to a Double A team, and most Double A franchises, basically one out of every five players you see are going to get to the big leagues, and that's pretty cool. We're only 95 miles from Pittsburgh here in Altoona, and this is absolutely 100% Pirates country. And even though the Pirates were really bad for a long time, they had a 20-year losing streak.
Yeah.
People here still love the Pirates. They still love going to Pittsburgh. PNC Park is an absolutely gorgeous major league ballpark, one of the best in the country. And so there's a lot of local pride here. Again, even though the Pirates have been bad and there hasn't been a whole lot to root for, we've been able to see these guys go straight from here and get to the big leagues within a year and a half or so. And I think because this city never really had anything like this. They did have an independent team for a couple years in the 90s before the Curve. But because this city and the baseball fans here never really saw anything like this, it was just a marriage made in heaven. When they come in, people have waited for it for a long time. You've got this gorgeous ballpark, and then you've got this Pirates affiliation where you can just see these people go, onto Pittsburgh. It's been really a tremendous fit for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Pirates love it. These guys are playing in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
I remember we were there for McCutchen's bobblehead when he was with the team. And I remember going back to Portland and say, because we always did bobbleheads of players when they left. And I said, the Curve did one of a guy that they have.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so then I knew who he was.
Yeah,
It's
that's a great thing about minor league baseball is you can have fun, and you have to have participation of the players. These are young guys; they get a lot of hype. Here's one thing, Mike, that's interesting to me about minor league baseball is that you can't just get all caught up in what they do at your level. You have to project as well, and I think a lot of people know that. McCutchen, I'll sit here and tell you this: Andrew McCutchen is not one of the 75 best curve players of all time.
yeah. And
He's
you're
not.
talking Curve players. And I know yeah.
Just in an Altoona Curve uniform.
Yeah.
Andrew started the year 0 for 15. He was batting about 180 in the middle of May. Now, he ended up turning around. He had a real good second half. Finished up around 258. I think around 10 homers, 60 something. I mean, a lot of stolen bases. But clearly, at the AA level, we've had dozens and dozens of players who have done a lot better than McCutchen did here. But that's what's great about minor league baseball is you have to look and see what the projection is. And clearly, Andrew McCutchen's gone on to become a major league superstar. But at the minor league level, you're looking for different kinds of things.
Yeah, don't fall in love. I tell people you can't. Stats in the minors is not a barometer of stats in the big leagues can be, but when you go in the minors, they get better. So you can't. If you look at a lot of great players, I always say to people, look at their minor league stats. You'd be shocked at how some of them are bad. Now with the Red Sox, it was the other way. A lot of our guys tore it up in AA, and the expectations became absurd. Every prospect, oh well, this guy, Mookie Betts, what Mookie did. I'm like, yeah, Mookie's one of like a million. It doesn't happen. Special time in my career was that I got to spend a little time in Altoona calling that championship, and then you and I were hanging out. That was bizarre for me, but it was amazing for the city.
Yeah, it's really good that you came here in 2010. Curve had a bizarre broadcaster situation.
Yeah.
The one guy quit during the middle of a game.
Yeah.
He literally quit, and he's gone on to have a great broadcasting career, Dan Zangrilli. But this was in August. He quit during the middle of a game.
Yeah.
And so they had a young guy, a broadcaster named Mike Passanisi in his first year. And this was the best Curve team we'd ever seen. And they had a chance to win the Eastern League Championship. And there was a little bit of a feeling, hey, we don't want to put Mike in a situation that there's a lot of pressure that Mike Passanisi, to where maybe that he might struggle a little bit. So you came down. You are a tremendous professional. You've been doing this a long time. Yeah. It helped great that you were able to help out. With Mike ended up having a great call. Mike Passanisi had a great call on the Curves championship, the last out, Daniel Moscos when they won in Trenton. So there are a lot of good memories from that team. But I'm glad you told that story, because it just goes back to what I was saying a little earlier. Minor league community is its own little entity kind of thing.
Sure.
And I think that's why so many people in and around minor league baseball have been so possessive and frustrated over the last year by everything that's happened with Major League Baseball coming in and strong arming and taking away 40 franchises.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll get to that. I like that topic. So I knew Rob Egan. Rob was a broadcast, for people who don't know, Rob was a broadcaster for Altoona. Rob and I were friends. He was the GM at the time. I just emailed him and said, hey, if you need a hand, not thinking he would take me up on it, just because, I don't know. I figured. And then what I loved about it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier. Mike and I became really close, and we became friends, and then that's something that, you can't, it's kind of neat. I got to know Josh Harrison really well. I got to know Matt Walbeck, and I are still Facebook friends. So just for that little time, there are other things that came with it, Cory, that I find rewarding. But I'll tell you what, I was pretty damn tired because I had called the 140 something games by myself that year in Portland. But it was really cool. It was nice that they let me do that.
Yeah, sure. And that was Altoona's first championship, the first professional championship in this city's history. And that was a hell of a team. Josh Harrison, Jordy Mercer.
Yeah.
Pitching staff was fantastic.
Yep.
Just a really, really fun team. They won the championship on the road in Trenton.
Yes.
Which I've always felt was disappointing for Altoona's fans. Because as I mentioned, they waited a long time, and the Curve fan base was really, really loyal. And the championship was won on the road. So in 2017, when the Curve won the championship again, they won it here in Altoona, and it was like a major league atmosphere for that clinching game when they won. So they've won two so far. I'm glad that the city got to enjoy one where it was clinched here.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right about that pitching. I mean, and I still see a lot of those guys pop up, and so let's get into. I see both sides of this, the MLB taking over an MILB, because what a lot of people don't realize that minor league players are employees of MLB. They're paying them So I do get what they're saying. If I ran a business, say if I ran a McDonald's and
Yeah.
corporate paid for all the food and I just made profit off that, not wouldn't be a lot. And these minor league owners aren't getting rich. I could see where, hey, for some cities, they're like, hey, listen, these are our guys. We want XYZ. And it seems like it kind of came to a giant, though, step in. We need to, and I get both sides of it where it's frustrating.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of elements here. I'm
Yeah.
going to backtrack and say I think minor league players were paid extremely poorly forever. So that's the genesis of all this. You're
He
talking about
writes.
guys that make $4 or $5 an hour if you really prorated it out over an hourly basis. All right. And so they were paid so poorly for so long. Then they've got lawsuits where they're trying to get more money. And that's really where it all started because
Yep.
Major League Baseball just didn't want to pay these guys. And so then when it got to the point through the courts where they were going to have to pay them some more, what does Major League Baseball do? They end up just lopping off 25% of the players that they were responsible for paying. And
Yeah.
now these guys that are left, they're going to get some more money, which they should have gotten all along. I do feel very badly for the cities, fans, franchises all over the country that, minor league baseball has been part of just what those cities are. And we see this here in Altoona. I can't imagine what Altoona would be now without the Curve.
Yeah.
But the flip side is this. I'd say about 22% or so of Curve players have made the major leagues. I think the number for short season teams was probably like 3 to 5%.
Yeah. It's really low.
So what you're talking about is you did have dozens of franchises around the country that had baseball teams that major league teams were paying for that really were not producing players that ultimately would make money for the major league team. So I totally get that financially. But the bottom line for me is this, Mike, okay? Every day of this Major League Baseball season coming up, there'll be a player released and a team is going to owe this guy 3 million,
Yeah.
7 million, 9 million. They throw this money around. They throw this money away in the major leagues. That amount of money, that's all we're talking about in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
You could have given every minor leaguer a 50% raise and it would have amounted to a few $1,000,000. So when they release some second baseman hitting 180 in June and they owe the guy $6 million, they're throwing away $6 million that could have saved all these minor league franchises and paid these players. So that's what really bothers me is minor league baseball players, Mike, they do everything they can to get there. They sacrifice, they make very little money. And then when they get to Major League Baseball, they just forget about minor league baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Major League Baseball doesn't give a shit about minor league baseball. I honestly believe this. And I'm sorry to swear.
Well, maybe it'll change.
I honestly believe that Major League Baseball sees minor league baseball as just a necessary evil that again, you got all these guys making this tons of money. Minor league baseball players, owners, nobody makes a lot of money. They do it because they love it. And there's not even a union for minor league baseball players.
Yeah.
So the difference between minor league baseball and Major League Baseball is massive when it comes to just these finances.
But Cory, I would say, I think minor league baseball is changing in terms of their business. Like the ballpark Worcester's in 2021, what Hartford built. I think that maybe it's becoming a little bit bigger business and they want a piece of it too. 25 years ago, it was not, we played in bad ballparks. Now they want big league ballparks now. So I think that's where it's changing. They want basically their facilities without the attendance.
Yeah. And they want control.
Of course. Yeah.
And so again, minor league baseball forever has been run by local business people. The guy who owns McDonald's franchises, he put together a nice place. Now, there are a lot of places in minor league baseball, especially some are at the lower levels, where there wasn't necessarily great ballparks and facilities and travel is bad. There's a lot of pros and cons about minor league baseball. I understand that completely. but just don't be fooled into thinking that Major League Baseball is doing this because they just didn't want to pay these guys. I mean, the bottom line is they didn't want to pay all these extra minor leaguers what would have amounted to a paltry sum. And like I said, when they release some light hitting outfielder in
Yeah.
June, that's the amount of money that it would have taken to
Yeah.
have avoided all of this in minor league baseball.
But you know how it goes with business. If they're not making money somewhere, even if they can afford it,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's the circle of life.
It is. And it's frustrating because you and I, we've done this our entire adult lives, Mike. And,
Yeah.
I do. Is there a great need for short season minor league baseball? Not really. I mean, cut to the chase.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily produce major leaguers. And it's there, you got 40, 50 people there so that 3 or 4 can really develop.
I think it's a compliment to the game though, because I'm seeing guys go through the system faster. That in the last 3 years, it's been ridiculous. They're not even playing in the minors that long. There might not even be a need for full season A ball in 5 years because guys are going right from, college to double A to big leagues, and I've seen that change. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. So that hope you don't mind me bringing up some Penn State stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember this. I was hosting a radio show in Portland, Maine on a Saturday morning, and I saw that Sandusky story come over Yahoo. I had a guest on the air, and we both said, that's probably not going to be good. And I said, this is bizarre. It was a Saturday morning when, I don't know if you broke the story. Somebody broke it on a Saturday.
Here's the way it's hard to talk about because that was such a sad time. I was on a cruise.
Oh, wow.
My wife and I were coming back from the Bahamas on a cruise up the East Coast out of Baltimore. And on Friday, we had terrible, terrible weather. Anybody that's ever been on a cruise ship, you know that the first floor where like the luggage is a good 40, 50 feet, 30, 50, 40 feet above the water. That flooded
on
our cruise ship. The waves, the weather was just incredible. The waves were everywhere. I wasn't fully worried. I don't panic, but I mean, it could have been really bad. So the power was knocked out on the cruise ship, Mike.
Okay.
Friday night, all day, most of the day Saturday. So I'm sitting in one of the open areas on a Saturday. It's about 3:00 in the afternoon, a few hours after everybody else found out. ESPN, the power finally comes back up. It's on the crawl there, and I, from like 20 feet away, I jumped up. What the F?
Yeah.
In the middle of an open room on a cruise ship. And really from that point forward, my life has never been the same. A lot of people's lives have never been the same. I tell that funny cruise story, just for, nobody was expecting that in November. Penn State had a bye week. That's why we were on a cruise.
Yeah.
But, just a really, really sad. It threw everybody's life here into upheaval. And in a lot of ways, here we are 10 years later. And I still really don't talk about Joe Paterno much at all.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to do is piss off somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring that up, you're going to have the loyalists on one side, you're going to have the critics on the other side, and you're never going to change anybody's mind there.
Yeah.
Because whatever people felt, that's what they're always going to feel.
Yeah. It's crazy to see you on CNN.
Yeah, I was hosting a radio show on ESPN radio here in Altoona State College. And so it was because I was kind of a local figure here, it was easy for them to reach out. Hey, let's get the ESPN radio guy there. So I made a lot of appearances, CNN, ESPN, all these. And because of that, and I was critical of Joe Paterno, and I'm still critical of Joe Paterno to this day. And because of that, my life became hell for a couple of years because I really got destroyed by a lot of Penn State fans, death wishes, hundreds upon hundreds of death wishes.
Yeah.
During a riot in State College, I haven't told this story much publicly, but The night that there was a riot in State College, they turned over the TV truck. Many people may remember those images. A friend of mine was down there and said that they overheard somebody say, "Hey, let's go burn Cory Giger's house."
Yeah.
So we ended up staying with a friend for a couple days. I mean, so
Yeah.
this was a life-changing thing. I was covering it in the media, and I'm just trying to tell the truth. But this really, we're still here in the middle of Penn State country, and a lot of people here absolutely love Joe Paterno and don't believe he really did anything wrong. So
Yeah.
if you take the opposite stance, then all of a sudden you become the enemy.
Yep. Sometimes it is good not to say anything, not in your position,
Yeah.
but as a
But
general person.
but because I was the ESPN radio guy and I was easily accessible, these people reached out to me and, hey, I just did my job telling the truth,
Yeah.
but yet I became pretty visible and easy. I became a public enemy because I was going against the beloved figure here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought about a lot of, yourself and a lot of, I worked in Erie for years. So I know a lot of people that are Penn State fans. So I had a lot of feelings about that. I felt for them because I've been exposed to that area where I know what it means to people who have not been especially in the East Coast, they don't get what college sports is. You can't understand it until you are in it and see its people's lives.
What I
Say,
truly learned about, and this, you look, sports means a lot to a lot of people, but I think we think sports is real life.
yeah,
And we think because we root for this player or this coach that we know those people,
yeah,
and we don't. And there, we change our morals, we change our values. Someone we would never want living next door to us or dating our brother or sister, we're perfectly fine rooting for that person on our sports team.
yeah,
And I think there's a lot of, I think it speaks to a lot of the human condition of how we're willing to sell our values a lot as long as it favors our sports team.
yeah. And that's something I don't get, and I think it's from working in sports. But I just think it's strange that people do that. I mean,
Yeah.
and even during this pandemic, that I get we want sports to be normal, but the virus doesn't care. We want everything to be. We want all these leagues to have, but you can't. You have to. I think we've learned a lot. People want, but you have to chill out right now. Unfortunately, that's how it is.
And we had to miss minor league baseball last year
Yeah,
because of it, which was really tough on a lot of franchises financially. Because again, as we were talking about that earlier, you said, you know, there's not a lot of money in minor league baseball. A lot of these franchises, their entire year profit might be $200,000,
yeah,
$400,000 to run a business for an entire year. Some franchises make a couple of million, the
yeah,
ones that really, really crush it. But a lot of franchises don't make a ton of money. And so to have to miss a year, you know, my heart goes out to all those franchises because those are what we're talking about is people.
yeah,
When we talk about minor league baseball, you can talk about players, coaches, managers, whatever. These are people. They're
yeah. And it affects. Yeah,
front office employees, people that live in towns.
yeah. The
There are a
businesses,
lot of
right?
They're younger people too that don't make a lot of money. A lot of folks in minor league baseball might make $35,000 a year to work 70 hours a week for
Yeah,
most of the year.
yep,
And so those people found themselves really in a tough spot with the
yeah,
season being canceled.
yeah. There's a lot of elements and kick down to all this. Like, you have no revenue, you still have to pay rent, you still have to
Yep.
pay taxes. And I think what a lot of people have learned during this is that big businesses don't have all this influx of cash. Like if you can't lose a year of, I think people who don't make a lot could probably get through it easier than they're dealing with bigger hands at the casino than we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And fortunately, but unfortunately, I was in the newspaper business for 25 years and I didn't make a ton.
Yeah.
So my wife has a good job. Um, she's in the psychology field, but I was Mike. I covered the Altoona Curve for 21 years for the Altoona Mirror. I was the second longest tenured beat writer in this entire country in minor league baseball. for one team.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
longest is Mike Drago
Yeah.
from the Red Eagle. Mike and I have covered our minor league baseball franchises on a day-to-day basis for newspapers longer than anybody in the country. Well, I lost my job. I lost my job at the newspaper last year because I cover Penn State football and I cover Altoona Curve,
Yeah.
and the Curve season was canceled, and we didn't think there was going to be Penn State football, and so the newspaper couldn't afford to pay me anymore. So look, it impacted a lot of us. Now I publish a website called Nittany Sports Now. We cover the hell out of Penn State. I do still cover the Curve, and I'm hoping to cover the Curve through the Altoona Mirror again going forward, kind of on a part-time basis. But my point is, a lot of people were impacted in many, and I'm not even talking about the people who lost loved ones and went through terrible, terrible ordeals, because that is so tragic. That's
Yeah.
terrible on one side, and a lot of other people have been hurt by this financially.
Yep.
So this has been a year unlike anything we've ever seen in our lives.